Hey everyone, welcome Fridays with Freddie. Fred, good to have you here. We skipped last week because it was our travel back from the Educause conference, but that sets up our topic for the day.
Yeah.
Wanted to pick your brain on your experience at Educause. What were your expectations going in? What was it like being there? Takeaways, ahas for people who were there, but for many who didn't even get to go. What's kind of your analysis?
One of the things that struck me, and maybe it's just imagination, I would like to look at the numbers. To me, this Educause seemed bigger than the one last year for some reason. I mean,
Well,
it
I
might
saw
also,
numbers. I heard numbers thrown around of 7,000, 10,000. No one really knew, but yeah, it wasn't four like
right.
it was the year before.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to see that Educause is back to what it used to be, which is, the one of the premier higher education events. As I suspected and as I predicted, AI was the topic of the day of a
Yes.
lot of vendors. I had a chance to walk around, and everybody's doing AI, right? But it was pretty clear that there were some vendors that have been around for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years with certain products, and all of a sudden they became an AI product. But to be fair, what they probably mean is, hey, we've added a little AI layer, which is fine, which is appropriate. I, you know, but as we've tried to educate our viewers and our listeners, look, just be cautious, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't get don't get too pulled into by the, oh, it's AI, so therefore it's a magic button.
Yeah. But do you find that that was true of all the vendors there? Or did you find yourself almost stratifying them, going, okay, these people seem to have good AI, these people seem to have kind of the whitewash version, and these people are working on some cool stuff in the future, kind of AI?
Yeah, well, obviously the big boys were there. Google was there, Microsoft was there, and those are two powerhouses in both building LLM models. Well, with Microsoft, the
Yeah.
partnership with OpenAI. So,
Yeah.
and it's a partnership with Microsoft that's focused on higher education. So there's some very interesting things happening there. One of the things that, let's call them the big boys, is they're really doubling down on where AI is going to go, and particularly where generative AI is going to go,
Hmm.
LLMs. Think of
Okay.
LLMs as we ask them questions and we get certain answers, and it throws together very interesting creative responses. However, it doesn't do anything, just getting information. Agents is the next step, where you're now enabling a large language model to actually do something. So for example, I'm not only asking an LLM to help me write an email, an agent, which is a little bit a workflow engine behind the scenes, is going to be able to take that email and send the email.
But you're saying, but that's an AI agent, right?
Right.
And that's what
Yes.
these bigger entities, the big brands, are talking about and touting. They're working on those things.
Correct. Yes. And the difference really is, look, regular workflow engines work fine. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, Joe, was I do see a tendency, and by the way, this is not just AI related, this is all shiny new object related, right?
Hmm.
Hey, it's a new tool, it's going to change everything. And oh, by the way, I need to start from scratch. No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All the best practices, all the things that a senior developer or your developers within your shop has cultivated over 10, 20, 30 years still stand.
You don't throw all that out.
You don't throw all that out. As a matter of fact, I do think the agents are going to become extremely important. And imagine that you'll probably have dozens of these agents that are interacting with your system, with perhaps a central organizing agent that says, okay, for this particular dynamic interaction, I need to use these three agents, and the next time I use four agents, etc. Right?
So
So
we can imagine very soon a time where a school has a trained financial aid agent that knows all things financial aid, so to speak, or
correct.
financial aid actions. And then there's one for advisement. And within advisement, there could be several agents, but then you're saying there's a central agent that's calling on them, just like a human would, just like,
Correct. Yeah.
I don't want to say a manager would call on their team, but like, just like I would know, hey, when I need design done, I go to Nate on our staff. When I need something related to IT, I know to talk to Fred. When it's
Right.
something visionary, I go to Matt. That's how these agents will interact with each other, is what you're saying.
Yes. However, in having some interesting conversations, when people were trying to describe a use case, really what they were describing was a regular use case where you do an ETL, right? You extract, you transform, and you load. I mean, that hasn't changed, right? So here's one of the good news stories. Your SIS, all your big enterprise systems, most of the processes are very prescribed. I mean, yes, there's edge cases, but there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps. The type of data you need for that, yes, it's great if you have great integration layer, if you have a great data layer where you can combine certain sets of data. But using traditional ways and means, you can still get there. As a matter of fact, I would say for the vast majority of processes, you'll still use the old proven techniques. The magic is going to come from how do you combine these agents with what you have and start focusing really on the areas where it makes sense. And to me, where it makes sense in 2 areas. Number one, if there are manual processes that somebody's doing today, and you and I know we've been at colleges where they had a manual process where to process a certain batch of documents takes them 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is
dual enrollment, transcripts, you name it.
Right. So if you can automate things with an agent on that side, wonderful, do it. But I think the real power in agents is going to come from the dynamic interaction layer. Beyond academics, we believe you have a systems of systems. Those systems do things very well in general, as long as you harmonize them, as long as you look at the whole, not just one particular, hey, I have a new student information system, therefore my whole life is better. No, right? There's another 80 systems.
Or we bought an early warning system and now everything's going to change in our enrollment. No.
Right. It's just not realistic. And if that's your expectation, you're going to be in for a little pain, and call us, we'll help you.
Yeah.
But what we believe is that we need to move to an area where there is an intelligent, dynamic UI, UX interaction layer where student interacts in one space with all of the systems.
So all the systems are sitting in the background, right?
Right.
And to your point, that should hopefully encourage the IT shop to go, you aren't going to be basically rebuilding your entire tech stack in the next 5 years, right?
Right.
You're not throwing it all out. You're just looking at, why we've always dreamed of these systems talking to each other. Many schools were going to go spend millions of dollars to build data lakes to do who knows what.
Yeah.
And AI can accelerate and solve for a lot of that without having to go spend all those millions.
Exactly. Yeah.
So back to Educause, Fred, one of the big observations was that some of the big brands we all hear about, right, the Googles and the Microsofts, were there with this agentic kind of vision and example. Then there were probably a cluster of smaller ones that I remember you walked by me a couple times at the event going, okay, there's a lot of window washing here. What do you call it? AI washing here.
Yeah.
What was your sense of some of the sessions and some of the thing? What did your takeaway from some of the CIOs who were in the sessions? I know you and I can talk about the one we did with a group of leaders on Wednesday. But yeah, what were your takeaways? What are you hearing?
I think Educause did a good job on bringing together a variety of views. So there was one panel where there really was a variety of views. There was some people like, well, we're really interested, but we're not sure where to start. We're starting to look at policy first and safety first and ethical use first, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, at the opposite end of that was a CEO that said, look, we threw everything. We went all in. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I empowered my team. I had them take some training. We picked 3, 4, 5 projects and say, okay, how can we use this? I'm not opposed to that either. Now, the end result of that was that not much came out of that. But I would argue, but your team is now dynamic and agile.
You built some muscle. Yeah,
right.
you built some valuable muscle there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a variety. Just like we suspected, there's schools that are embracing it and have the ability to embrace it, and other schools are cautious and waiting. It's not necessarily a wrong approach to take on either side. And threading the needle is not a bad approach either, but you got to be involved somehow.
But did you get the sense that a lot of this does flow through the CIO in the sense, or whoever's running the tech shop is, one tech shop is being highly cautious. Another one is being very proactive and almost creating little skunk works to try and experiment on a few things. Would it be interesting for our listeners and viewers to maybe assess and say, where am I as a leader? Am I doing a lot of the empowering, or am I doing a lot of the holding back, and why? There may be a good reason in both cases, but it's good to ask that question, I think, as a leader right now, because you don't want to be that leader 5 years from now who's like, oh man, I could have empowered, but I didn't, for whatever personal fear I had. Or we went too far and I didn't put any restraints on, and oh man, we're in trouble now.
Yeah, and the reality is this: the real center of gravity when it comes to the use of AI is actually on the academic side, and specifically, the students are using it, right? So on that side, things are afoot, if you want to call it that, right? I mean, there's individual professors, individual instructors that are dealing with it, and then academic departments are trying to wrap their heads around it. So it's happening no matter if you have a CIO that's involved or not, which is also the point. I think every CIO right now should see him or herself as the central resource for the university to start enabling the discussions, two, the policies and procedures, and three, to be the center of knowledge.
Yeah, and start maybe even start to tinker a little bit. I would be interested,
Yeah.
as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, I mean, time, no one has time, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if a technology staff can find time once a month, carve out a half hour, 45 minutes, buy some students some lunch, just get with some students once a month and just hear about what they're using, what their use cases are, where would they see it valuable.
Yeah.
And you may not take much action on it, but just store it up, because at some point your president's going to tap you on the shoulder going, hey, what are we doing with this AI stuff? And to have some, hey, our students are asking for this, our faculty is asking for this, administrators are asking for this. We haven't done much with it, but these are some of the main use cases our department feels would be worth us pursuing. I think that'd be a healthy activity to do now, no
I think
matter
so.
what stage you're in.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be engaged. And look, and I would argue, leaving AI aside, I think we're way past the point where an IT shop could just be an operational turn the wrench shop.
No,
If every organization is a technology organization, which is a true statement,
true statement.
then staying at the cutting edge of that technology and continuously trying to figure out, okay, how do I make my organization better? How can I serve my organization better? You need to dedicate time. Right. I feel like
Yeah.
I use the old Google method, which was the source of most of Google's innovation, by the way. I would allow my staff the 20% of their time. Like, look, just work on something
Outside.
different outside of
Yeah.
what you're doing on a daily basis. And it does wonders, because you're also empowering folks who've been in a certain position for 10 years, 20 years. And listen, they do a great job, but they might be a little bit bored. Hey, can I be involved
Yeah.
with something new? I think that should be, it doesn't have to be 20%, but let people tinker a little bit and also start talking. To your point, I think it's a very important point. As an IT shop, we usually have our set of stakeholders. I would encourage people to go one or two layers below that, right? Just so yes, you should
Not
talk.
just the deans, go to the
Correct. Yeah.
front line, not just the student government students, go to the
Right.
students who are not represented necessarily
The
on your
person
student government.
who runs student life, the person who runs clubs, go talk to your dean of the libraries, because they're all doing things on the ground level that is very interesting, right? I found
Mm-hmm.
out, for example, in the past, by just doing that I connected two people within a campus that were working basically on the same thing, but individually didn't have the political clout to move it up. And I said, look, but first of all, use me for that, right? I can be an advocate for you, but
Facilitate, yeah.
facilitate this, but let's do this together. So I think the combination of those things is very powerful.
Cool. Any closing thoughts or any closing takeaways from Educause? I know on Wednesday, the last day, we had a lunch with a group of deputies who report to CIOs and a couple of CIOs. Any takeaways from that, or any kind of closing thoughts?
I think, yes, AI is the topic of the day, but the regular
Block and tackle.
block and tackle student information system, I need to upgrade, I need to re-implement, I need to do something else, still occupies, I would say, 90% of a CIO's time. And
And
rightfully
rightfully
so.
so, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be. Whatever that 10% is, I think you've given us some insight into what a school could do, or what a leader could be doing with that extra 10%. Either it's investigating or policy making, or in some cases, some early experimenting, or in a worst case, at least some conversation with that frontline stakeholder to just find out what their pain points and needs are, because that's going to come in handy soon.
Yeah, because you don't want to be, I hate to say it, but you don't want to be the IT department that a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, where nobody at the campus thinks of you when they think of AI.
Yeah, they just see you as the break fix shop.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to be you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, and to that point, yeah, and that my closing thought was that was what I heard from several CIOs and deputy CIOs was, we need to have a seat at the table. We need to have a seat at the table, and they're trying to figure out how to get a seat at the table so that they can influence the future, because they recognize that you are a technology organization, and I think that goes back to, well, you've got to kind of redesign your shop to
Mm-hmm.
get the attention of the senior leaders and start thinking and acting strategically and bring strategic insight. And it takes some time. We've worked with CIOs who've gotten that strategic seat at the table, but they had to do a bunch of proactive things first.
Yeah,
You
inviting
can't get the seat at the table and then be proactive. You have to be proactive and then get the seat at the table.
exactly. Make being invited inevitable.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
that could be a good use of a CIO leader's time right now.
Right.
Because the game is going to change. Everybody else is going to have questions about this AI stuff. You could be, like you said, the answer source, and that does put you at the table. But you just can't be, oh, AI is terrible, AI is great. Give us use cases. Give us how you would bring AI into our institution. What are you hearing? What's working? What's not? Have a point of view. And I
Exactly.
think that's a great.
Do what we do. Have a point of view, right or wrong. Right.
Yep.
You're going to have conversations. You're going to change your mind on some things as you learn more. You start to become more nuanced. But have a point of view, because that provides the window and the door into having a conversation.
And we'd welcome the conversation to help you create that point of view, because sometimes it's in the back of your head and there's all these muddled thoughts. Maybe we can help you pull it out, put it in a deck, and now you've got something to show. Happy to help you with that. All right,
Yep.
Fred, thank you. That's Fridays with Freddie. We'll see you all next week.